All right. So thank you everyone for coming. I talked to Gisli and asked him to help me with starting my own Microsoft 365 user group in Iceland. He's an MVP himself, and John has been helping me in becoming also an MVP. So now I have 2 mentors at least. But yeah, I have already created a Microsoft 365 user group on Facebook, and I'm starting it on LinkedIn as well. I'll post it here in the chat later. But I would like you to welcome John Jarvis. I met him in Las Vegas last year, where he taught me, him and 3 other fantastic people or professionals. They taught me in security workshop for a whole day on Microsoft 365. Was it a community conference? I think it was. Yeah. So I'll just give him the word now. So welcome, John.
I don't like not sharing the Teams. You should be able to see this now, yeah?
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
Great.
So in my kind of what I do with this talk here is I'd like to get as much kind of participation as kind of possible. So there's going to be some questions that I'm going to go through as we go through the different subjects. I probably will throw in a couple of like demos of what we can do as we go throughout the presentation, but let's start with a little bit of who I am. I promise that animation stops in a second, but my name's John Jarvis. I'm a Windows 365 and MVP, and my day-to-day job is looking at Microsoft security products, so the Defender XDR suite, the Microsoft Intune suite, a little bit of Azure as well. I've done quite a few landing zones probably about 5 or 6 years ago and haven't really looked at much since. Oh, I pressed the button by accident. I've got 23 different certs within the Microsoft area. I do my own podcast called the Microsoft Spotlight podcast, and a little fun fact about me, I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and have been for 3 or so years now. Let's just run through quickly as I can because this might take a long while. First question is, and it's, does AI and CoPilot change what an organization should do with security? So anyone fancy taking that question? Linda, if no one does, I'm just going to default to yourself. So what is also say, I realize that English might not be everyone's natural language or natural tongue. If I'm talking too much, too loud, or unclearly, please ask questions, raise your hand, and tell me off for not speaking clearly. So, question: who wants to take it? Linda, you having it?
Okay. Yes, of course. If those that are hacking and those that are using AI, we of course have to be as fast and as quick on our feet to to respond. Like we can't just be doing the same thing as we have always done. But should do with security and could do with security is also a question, because we can also use it in for our advanced, because there's always lack of employees. There's always lack of SOC operators. So of course we could also use it to make it more easier for us with automations and so on.
Mm-hmm. So one of the big things that I've seen in the past like 8 months or so is organizations going, oh, AI is coming, we need to change everything, we need to be able to we need to be looking at our data more and what AI can do to it, etc., etc. But when you look at kind of the back end of what organizations want to do, and it's like encrypt data, understand data governance and that side of it, like organizations should have already been doing this 5 or so years ago, like, or when they first started to adopt like stuff like SharePoint or Azure files or and any kind of file share in the cloud. Like they should have been doing this already, but it's just kind of like general, like I wouldn't say laziness, but just chucking everything up into the cloud and forgetting about it has stopped organizations from implementing stuff like Purview and other data sets in other cloud in other cloud platforms as well. So should we be changing what we've been doing? No, that we shouldn't be changing what we were doing. We should just be doing what we were supposed to be doing when we adopted cloud technologies. So what I want to do today is I'm going to go through how can we stop 99% of all attacks. So how do we stop 99% of all attacks? And I would ask the floor, but I'm not too sure if we're going to get an answer. So anyone have any guess on how we can stop 99% of all attacks?
Securing the endpoints.
Yep, good. Very good. That's actually my second tip for today. So securing endpoints. But we're going through 4 different scenarios today of how we can actually stop all 99% of attacks, and it stems from the first one, and that's the zero trust principles. So zero trust principles, what is basically zero trust? So zero trust is a shift from the traditional perimeter-based defense to a more granular and adaptive approach. So what we mean by this is, instead of the old school and legacy approach of secure the perimeter, and once in the perimeter, we let people loose. We're trying to move away from that when we talk about zero trust principles. And what we're trying to do is, instead of that big castle and moat approach, where the castle's our kingdom, is our network, and the moat is our perimeter, is our firewall, is our protection. Once a person gets through that moat and been able to get through the castle and get the key to the castle, how can we stop that from happening? And that's that zero trust. So what we're going to be doing with a zero trust is breaking up that castle into different sections and have multiple moats around different areas of the castle. So one area will be identity, one will be devices, and also the network. So the 3 core components, identity, device, and network, we can segment and ensure that identity establishes just the identity in the context of the user. So when a user starts to log on to Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Azure, we have stuff like conditional access in place and multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication should stop 99% of all attacks, but we have seen cases such as Uber, I think it was last year, maybe possibly the year before, where we see techniques such as brute force persistent MFA, where a bad actor would just constantly ping out multi-factor authentication requests to users, and the MFA fatigue of going, oh, I don't want this, I'm going to just accept yes, press yes, because I'm doing something wrong. We need to be able to stop that little thing from there, and that's what you've seen recently with number-based matching when it comes to Microsoft Authenticators. Stop that MFA fatigue of, I might as well just click yes because I'm getting bored of clicking yes or no for authentication. So yeah, devices should also be secured and compliant with organization policies, and the network should be segmented and encrypted to prevent unauthorized access. And the key thing for this is that if we had a bad actor come into an organization, is that if they get through the first hurdle of identity, how can we make sure that they're segmented and just stopped there? So we'll go through that in a little bit. So benefits and advantages. So the benefits are, as we kind of just said, it reduces that attack surface. We minimize the exposure of sensitive data and assets to potential threats. Enhance that user experience as well, because although we're saying zero trust, we're actually enabling seamless single sign-on. We're enabling secure access to location from any, enabling access to any resource from any location and device. So, as you know, in today's modern world, we have users going accessing networks not just from the office like we probably would 10 to 15 years ago. We're seeing users with bring your own device from home. We're seeing users take laptops home. We're seeing users working from the beach. Like, seriously, I've seen plenty of times people sitting on the beach and working from there, because organisations allow it now. Working from anywhere is a genuine thing. So we need to be able to secure those people as much as we are securing the people within the office as well. And this improves your compliance posture. It enforces granular and consistent policies around the network. And if you're going to be audited by auditors and compliance people, making sure that we've got the right things in place to be able to tick that box and make sure that we're compliant within the organization as well. So how do we apply those zero trust policies? With Microsoft, kind of already said it, but multi-factor authentication with additional verification such as a code, number matching, biometrics, or passwordless is the massive thing now. So ensuring users that organizations now making sure that users don't have passwords, because passwords can be written on the back of a post-it note, stuck on a notebook or a laptop, and then when on a train to work or any type of transport, that could be taken and used against and so passwords just aren't that secure anymore. But a number matching policy on your phone, much more secure. Even better, something like this, a FIDO2 key as well. So FIDO2 key without is the most secure way to secure identity by far. What we do with this, and I'll do a demo in a second. What we can do with this is enable login with only this to be available to myself. So instead of a phone or anything like that, this key here holds all of my identities for my Microsoft 365 environment for myself. I need to be present. I need to have this. I need to have this plugged into my laptop. And then when I press this button here and put in a 4-digit code, it allows me to have access to my environment. But we should also be preaching least privilege access and role-based access control, granting the minimum level of access and permissions necessary for the job role in turn. If users then need to actually uplift their permissions, so they need exchange management role, they need a contributor role to a what's it called, in a resource group. So I'm really trying to put Azure stuff into this for the audience. So yeah, a resource group or anything like that, we can make sure that's used, PIMs involved, and just-in-time access if we need to access workstations as well. Assume breach mentality and continuous monitoring. So we should always assume that the environment is always compromised, and we need to have that breach mentality of constantly monitoring the network as well. So I said I'll do a quick demo, so let's do it. I'm going to stop sharing and reshare. Stop sharing and reshare. Put this over to here. Here. And we are going to open up an incognito in private browser. I'm going to go to portal.office.com, and where is my... And we are going to share my window. So normal screen that you'll see when logging into portal.office.com or portal.azure.com. I'm going to plug this into my machine. Hopefully I've got a spare port somewhere. Yeah, possibly a spare port somewhere. There we go, spare port, and plug that in. And if you haven't seen a FIDO2 key before, I think these are absolutely brilliant. I can either go to sign-in options and then go to face fingerprint or security key, or it's not set up, or I can go to john@johnjarvis.co.uk, which is my email address, and I can go to use my security key instead. And I can now touch my key, put in my PIN, touch my key again, and I'm now signed into my network. So see how easy and quick that was as well. Just a 4-digit PIN, and also the touch of this FIDO2 key gets me inside this organization. So the benefits of this is that if I was to have to be phished and I clicked an email, I signed in using an authenticator app, bad actors, hackers could now actually copy that the cookie session out of this using a reverse lookup, and using this FIDO2 key. I'm absolutely not able to do that. So it's by far the best way to secure your environment. How have we done? 20 minutes. Okay. We're on number 1 of 5 and we've done 15, 20 minutes. So this is going to be good. Right, now let's present in Teams. Right, present in Teams still not working, but we roll with it. So I show play from current slide. And we're going to share my screen again for the next part. Cool. So extended detection and response is our next thing. So the next, the big thing that Microsoft are pushing at the moment is XDR, as we call it. So, and that's the extended detection and response. But when I talk about EDR, as I call it, or XDR with organizations, I'm always faced with one question, and I'm sure anyone who works in security, the Microsoft security is asked this question so many times, and that is, should we put all of our eggs in one basket? So we have lots of organizations out there with loads of different security products. So ForcePoint for one thing, and then Trend Micro for AV, then Mimecast for email protection, and CrowdStrike for EDR. Loads of different security products, paying a premium on all of these products, and paying millions per year on them. All very scared to put their eggs in one basket. So, Linda, I'm going to pick on you again. Should we put all of our eggs in one basket? And if we do, why is it a good thing?
Well, I don't know. I really don't know if we should or should not. I know that most companies do to spread it, but I think the most important thing is to document it outside of your environment and know what you should do if something happened, who to contact, and so on. Have something planned ready. But no, I have no idea what you would recommend. Thank you for the curveball.
Anybody else? I'm going to give it 5 seconds. Anyone else? Okay, cool. So the answer is it depends. So if I was a Microsoft employee, I would be going, yes, like Microsoft all the way. You know, use the Microsoft 365 E5 license and use everything. You don't need anything else. You can have a saving of like 73% of money across your security and compliance products with the E5 products, which is true. But you know, different organizations have different requirements that maybe Microsoft aren't able to give you. But in terms of where Microsoft are on that security journey now, Gartner reports they're a leader, Forrester Wave reports leader, and they're constantly pushing the bar when it comes to security products. So let's have a quick general overview of what EDR is. So EDR or XDR, sorry, is the new approach to securely and that doesn't make sense, to securely unify data and insights across multiple domains and provide a comprehensive and holistic view of the threat landscape, which enables a faster and more effective detection and response. So what does it actually mean? It means that I'm using one single pane of glass to be able to manage the whole of my security state across my whole network. And this doesn't just include Microsoft. We can import alerts from, if we was using GCP or AWS, any other kind of cloud and native product, and also from on-premise environment as well. If we had anything on-premise, so we can also pass those logs into Defender XDR as well, to have that holistic approach of everything. So we're not just having 5 different products with 5 different portals to look at just one, to be able to look at a detection across your whole landscape. We're using one single pane of glass. And the thing that I'd say to organizations the most when we are talking about XDR is that you have a new user, a new IT admin coming on board, and we need to train them up to use our security products. The level of investment, if we was to use like so many different products so many different products, is going to be crazy. We're going to see things fall through the cracks. So that user needs to be trained up on 5 different environments, 5 different portals, understand and needs to understand which portal to use for each thing. But with Defender XDR, we have one portal that unifies all that data into one section.
I was going to ask you one thing there.
Yep.
What about MSPs?
The MSPs would usually use, so most MSPs out there now, so especially say like managed SOC environments as well, and now using Microsoft Sentinel in the background. I know you know quite a bit about Sentinel, but that's what we can use is Microsoft Lighthouse to actually bring in all of those logs into one environment, so you can actually manage different environments. I think that might be a session for Jose to talk about. Linda, he's very much the Sentinel god, as I call him. Mm-hmm. But the benefits and advantages are improved visibility and context, reduced complexity and cost. As I said, I was speaking to an organization a month back that could save 1.5 million pounds on their security by consolidating it all into Microsoft 365 E5, which is absolutely crazy, because they're already paying for E5, and what they've done is they've done a cost measurement of other stuff that they're using that was covered by E5, and it's 1.5 million across, I think it was 4,000 users. So substantial cost reduction of cost there as well. Enhanced automation and orchestration, so we can leverage AI and machine learning for automation. Security CoPilot was announced last week to become GA on the 1st of April. So we've got our own CoPilot for security now, which is, in my opinion, is going to be game changing. Something you said earlier, Linda, was the lack of resource and the lack of people out there to actually work in security now. I think Security CoPilot is going to be able to stop them, is going to be able to close that gap quite a bit. So organizations who need to bring on new resource and scale them up, we've got Security CoPilot now there to ask questions, to understand where gaps could be, where attacks have come from, etc., etc. And the bottom one, increase agility and scalability, so adapting to change threat landscape and evolving needs as well. So I'm going to go back to a demo on this. So I like to throw in a demo. I feel lost without doing demos, so we can keep it high level or we can go straight into it. So if I share that screen that I had earlier, security and compliance, here we go. So this is now known as Defender XDR. So we've got all of the different areas of security at security.microsoft.com. We've got exposure management here, which is actually quite a brand new product that's just been announced. We've got assets here for devices and identities. We've got endpoints for Defender for endpoint, and identities and email and collaboration on the left-hand side. But if I go up to the easiest place to look is under instance and alerts. So under instance and alerts, I can see all of the alerts and all of the incidents that have come into my environment. As you can see here, I've got quite a lot of alerts from block threat from Russia. This was something that I set up myself. I noticed in my environment a load of requests like daily from IP addresses in Russia trying to log into my environment. So I set up my own rule just to give myself an email alert when it comes through. And if I click on it, I'm sorry if anything comes up rude here. I've done a user group last week and it came up and something rude popped up. But this one doesn't seem too bad. Okay. So what I can see here, if I go through my attack story, is I can see that I was sent a phishing email from Russia, and if I click onto it, I can get all of the details, all the related activity in the bottom left-hand side. Luckily, nothing happened. It was blocked straight away, and I can see that it was none of my identities or none of my devices were compromised. As you can see here, there's nothing that's involving any type of device or asset. If I click on my assets here, I can see that yeah, there's no devices. It was just Exchange Online, which done its job perfectly. But if I go down into further alerts, I can see there's been an initial access incident involving one user. Again, nothing rude again, luckily. I can see here that I got a phishing email from have a free and insanely fast Wi-Fi connection, even in mountains, which sounds amazing. If I clicked on that, I would have been given put to this link here. And in my story here, I can see that it's been resolved straight away and automatically. I didn't do anything to resolve this, but what was done to resolve it? Email came in, it found the malicious URL, and it was removed straight away after delivery, and it's been marked as resolved. I didn't need to assign that to anyone, so it's been left unassigned on the right hand side. And if I click through, I can see everything that was done. I got an alert. I can see it was threat management, and Defender for Office 365 picked that up very, very quickly. And I can see the assets that were potentially affected within this. I can see it as my user account, and I can see that it was my mailbox as well. An investigation was carried out and was remediated almost instantly. So the URL was zapped using Defender for Office 365. So Defender for Office 365 has two things which are, in my opinion, amazing. You've got safe links and safe attachments. So safe links will go in and investigate the link, see if there's any malicious malware behind it, and the same for the attachments as well. It'll go through, it will detonate both the URL and the attachments in the sandbox environment, see if it's malicious, and then block it and zap it if needed. And we can see here we've remediated almost instantly. So none of these involved any of my devices, but if I go through and go to a Windows or Mac device, so I'm using the Mac right now, I can see that my MacBook is enrolled in here. I'll click on it, why not? In my XDR environment, I can see that I've got a exposure level of medium. I can see some vulnerabilities that are possibly in there. So I've got vulnerability management built into here as well. I can also, if I click on the eclipses at the top right-hand side, I can run an antivirus scan from here. I can initiate a live response session. So if there's any type of issues that potentially could have happened on my device, I can initiate a live response session, which will enable me to, if I click on it, I've disabled it. I can run a live response session to see if there's any issues on my Mac, any kind of phishing, any bad actors, and be able to isolate and be able to resolve that. I can also isolate my device from the network completely. So what this will do is it will ensure I have no no network access from this device. So if I was trying to go to Google or something like that, I wouldn't be able to actually access it, but it will still keep alerts and keep access to Defender for Endpoint, so I can remediate and then put it back onto the network once that's been completed. Again, conscious of time, so I'm just going to click off that, but I hope that's given a bit of a run through of some of the things you can do. I could probably do this for about 2 hours within the Defender suite, but I think there's some of the key points within Defender XDR stuff that you can do. Stop sharing, reshare.
I was on a seminar now, 2 days ago, where there was a guy from TrueSec. Have you heard of them? From Sweden.
No.
Okay, they're like a rock stars, a little bit. They're a SOC security team and company, and he told us that you should never, ever, ever open links, as in a sandbox or anything. Like if you're trying to figure out if it was a malicious link, then you shouldn't actually ever open it, because then they would tag the user that came from, and they would try even more to like spam him, because
Yeah.
it's like then that user is linked, like labeled as somebody who opened the
Yeah, sure.
link.
So what's key to note is that with Defender for Office 365, it doesn't open it as the user. It opens it as, in like a system context, so it doesn't see it as being opened by the user itself. So you'll find that most security products now do that, have to have this. So Proofpoint have it, Defender for Office 365 have it. I think Mimecast might even have it, but Mimecast is terrible, so they might not. But CrowdStrike, all of those, Proofpoint definitely all use this technology now as well in the background. But I wouldn't recommend if you was to have your own personal sandbox and then copy the link and do it that way. I would never recommend doing it. You always use a system or something like that, like Defender for Office 365 or Proofpoint to do that.
Exactly.
So manage your device is the next bit. So ensure that your devices are managed by Intune. I'll drop a link into the chat in a second of an article I've done recently around this, which has a bit more kind of depth. One of the big questions: enter join or hybrid join, is one of the main talking points when we're talking about Intune. I won't ask you again, Linda. I think I've been picking on you too much now. But my opinion is always go Entra ID join. Don't go hybrid join, because hybrid join is terrible. We spoke about Vegas earlier, and Linda was on a workshop with myself and two friends of mine. I think we had about an hour left of the workshop, and we spoke about Intune. And I think I spent 20 minutes like berating the whole audience on how bad hybrid join is, and Jose and that said I shouted. I don't think I shouted, but I was very passionate about this subject. So intra join or hybrid join. So as I said, I think hybrid join is okay if you have current devices in your network that you are not going to refresh, and you're looking for that gap to go to Intune. If you've got brand new devices, never use autopilot and hybrid ID Entra I don't even know what it's called. Entra ID hybrid join. It's horrible and defeats the purpose of what autopilot is. I'm happy to be shouted at and ask questions about this, but let's just move on, because I'll be here for far too long shouting about it. So challenges that organizations are having at the moment. So organizations are having the challenge of protecting the device. So how can we protect our device from cyber attacks? So malware, phishing. I know we spoke about XDR and EDR a second ago, but how can we actually manage our devices and make sure that they are completely up to date? Make sure it's got the latest security patches, software patches, and software updates. How can we ensure that we can enforce compliance policies with standards? How can we make sure that password complexities are kept on the device? How can we ensure that it's encrypted with BitLocker? How can we ensure that that we're using conditional access and multi-factor authentication? And if we lose that device, how can we make sure that device wipe is there? Other problems we're having is monitoring, auditing, device inventory. So organizations don't know traditionally if using on-premise Active Directory, and they've got OUs of thousands of devices and probably only 50% of them being used. How can we make sure that that device audit is constantly up to date and being refreshed constantly? And making sure that stuff like usage and performance is being monitored consistently as well. But how can we also empower users to work securely and productively? So big thing when we talk about security is, where is the line in the sand of it being over secure and unusable, or secure and usable and productive? And this for me is where Intune comes in leaps and bounds, because we're able to maintain control and visibility over access over our devices and activities, but we're also allowing users to use their device for the day-to-day job. So the solutions in place are in Intune to integrate the device with Intune for mobile device and application management. So organizations need to think of their whole estate, how of devices that are connected into Microsoft 365. And it's not only the laptops or computers in offices, but mobile phones. Bring your own device. Company issued mobile phones. How can we make sure all of that is secure under one environment? Entra ID is obviously integrated into Intune. How can we enable devices for seamless single sign-on for both cloud and on-premise resources? So one of the big myths that we have with hybrid Entra ID join is that we won't be able to access on-premise environments anymore, which is false. If you're using Entra ID join, you can still access both cloud and on-premise resources with seamless single sign-on. Conditional access baked straight into it. So how can we ensure that if my device was picked up and then taken, and I decided I want to go to China, and my organization doesn't want any type of access to devices in China, how can we stop that? So we can use conditional-based authentication for users, for devices, and location and application contexts. And then, as I said before, check that and report compliance status of devices against organization policies and standards. So my tips and best practices for managing your devices: plan and implement management strategy that aligns with your organization goals and needs. Cover all devices or all aspects of the device lifecycle, from enrollment to use to retirement as well. And as I said, that covers mobile phones and devices. So use Intune, a unified integrated device management solution that combines everything else. So when we go everything that's listed in purple there, but when we create an Intune environment and we want to start using that from the first, my general advice is always start with security in mind. So always build out your security structure first. Make sure you've got your firewall policies in place. Make sure you've got your AV policies in place. Make sure you've got your security baselines in place as well. And we're going to go through that in a second. Make sure you've got all of that in place first before we start to import our devices. And then we can start looking at the look and feel, making sure that the wallpaper is set correctly. Make sure that the right applications are in place. But always start with security. And then educate and empower your users to work securely and productivity from any device or location. Let's skip through this because we have got so much time left. Protect data. So does all device data need protecting? So my answer to that is no. Not all data does need protecting, but what organizations need to do, I'm going to skip through this to this bit here. But what organizations need to do is understand their data. So when we're starting to look at protecting data, is to have a pure discovery phase of the different data and different data sources within your organization. So that could be Azure Files, Azure Blob Storage, it could be SharePoint, OneDrive, on-premise file shares. We need to understand all of the data that's within our organization and be able to classify it. But how do we classify data that we don't know what it is and what it does? So organizations need to understand the impact of the data within the organization. You know, general chit chat emails or Teams messages or general designed general data day-to-day might not need classifying, but you may have project documentation within your organization, finance records, salaries, etc. within your, or we might have an SQL database which has got pure data in there that if it was leaked would be really bad for an organization. So we need to understand the taxonomy of data within the organization and then apply appropriate protection and retention actions. So when we look at, say, for myself in my current organization, we've got op numbers. So if we've got an op number which relates to a certain project which we don't want to be shared out to competitors or to users that just don't generally need to see it, make sure that it's encrypted. So we can use Purview to ensure that that documents are encrypted, and then define and enforce those policies with compliance and governance objectives as well. So make sure this data cannot be sent out from our organization using DLP policies, and monitor and audit that data activity and compliance. So if we've got a bad actor within or a disgruntled employee within our organization, and he or she decides to send out like 20 different documents, make sure that insider risk is in place and we've got policies set up so people can't send out data. I mean, perfect example would be me today. But today is my last day at my current organization. I might go, cool, I fancy taking a load of documents out of my current company so I can use it in the future. I'm not going to do it. I don't need to, but it's a perfect scenario of where we should have policies in place to tighten up that data leakage. And it might not be from, as I said, it might not be from a disgruntled employee. It might just be someone who's leaving who wants to take a load of project documents with them. But the main point with this is to educate and train users and stakeholders. So when you put in like that document labeling in place, the main concern for most organizations is actually how are my users going to react? So we don't want users to be able to go, I don't want to label this document. Why is it putting a watermark over this or a header or footer on this document? Why do we need to do it? And then get pissed off and then decide that they'd rather not label at all. So we need to make sure that users are actually understand why it's actually needed, and actually make sure that the right documents are labeled rather than just every single document within an organization. And then the bottom, I've just put review and update data protection strategies regularly. So the data is constantly moving, and terabytes of data is created every single day within in some organizations. So making sure that data is data protection strategy is constantly updated and regularly updated as well, which is really, really important. And I'm going to skip through to the last bit here, and that's benchmark your environment and use tools. So make sure that we're using stuff like Microsoft Secure Score to provide a numerical score-based score for your environment based on your security configuration and settings. And it also offers recommendations to improve score and reduce risk exposure. There's obviously an Azure score, a secure score as well for Azure, for your Azure subscriptions and stuff. Use that, make sure that the recommendations in there are in place. You can use something called CISA Scuba Report for Microsoft 365 as well to assess compliance within CISA directives and alerts, and be able to scan your environment for any kind of compromisation out there as well. If your company can afford it, use CIS Secure Suite. CIS Secure Suite is probably the gold standard when it comes to security and security baselines within the industry. Secure Suite is their paid for option where you can actually get group policies or and tools in place to actually do it, to actually implement their baselines more effectively and quickly. And if you want to use Intune, use this Open Intune baseline, which is a community-driven tool in GitHub. Really, really good tool to actually make sure you've got a really good Intune baseline involved as well. And the benefits of that is just to save time and resources, automate and streamline security assessments, and improve your process daily or weekly or monthly, however you want to see it, want to look over secure score. And it gives you a really good visibility and awareness to understand your security levels and gaps, and enhance your security posture and compliance. I realize we ain't got much time left, so I'm just gonna stop talking now. That's kind of just my real quick 5 tips on how to make sure that your Microsoft 365 Azure tenants are secure, basically. There we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Are there any quick questions?
I have one question regarding ChatGPT or the CoPilot.
Go for it.
So there seems to be increase in prompt hacking, and the CoPilot is integrating into Microsoft very deeply. Even actions, so I can create user by typing in something like some prompt.
Mm-hmm.
How can we prevent users to scan QR codes, and which leads to some kind of a prompt that actually does something? It's a whole new field.
Yeah, it's a whole new field, isn't it? A whole new field. I've seen that QR-based prompt, that QR-based attack being more regular now. But with stuff like that, is actually just ensure that you've got the right Defender for Office 365 or the right email protection in place, so those QR codes just don't get sent to you in the first place. We've got to remember with CoPilot as well, and any kind of prompt-based any type of prompt-based CoPilot within the organization, is that you're going to be able to do exactly what you've got permissions for and what you've always had permissions for. So one of the big kind of misconceptions, in my opinion, about CoPilot for Microsoft 365 is that people think that they've got more access to things that they shouldn't. Well, it's actually not the case. Users have got the same access as what they've already had. So they haven't suddenly got payroll details for their CEO, for example. And I think that's one of the most I saw it, the most prompted thing within Microsoft 365 was, what is my CEO salary? But yeah, it's quite interesting. So I'll just say, have the right protection on board. So make sure you've got the right policies in place for Defender for Office 365, and education to users as well. Education is the most important thing. So attack simulations, some people like them, some people don't like them. I personally like putting attack simulations in place for users, and just education. Do not do a QR code that you don't know of. Or that's just my tips on that. I think that was another question. Does that answer your question, sorry? Was there one more? I saw a hand up, and I think it's gone back down again. Cool. Awesome. Thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it. Linda, thank you for inviting me, and
thank you for coming.
And Gisli as well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It was
Thank you so much.
fantastic.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Gisli. We'll put up the video again, right, Gisli? You're gonna cut it and share it, right?
Yes, I will do that.
Awesome. And I'll put in the links in the Azure group.
Fantastic.
Or the new group. All right. Thank you very much. And I'll maybe introduce me in that post. Forgot that. Who the hell am I? All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Have a nice weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.